creators, welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to be starting to work on my card for Craft Roulette for this week. But the technique that I am using, I wanted to share it in another video. So I'm going to start showing that technique in this video, but I won't probably upload this video until later, because then I got to work on my Craft Roulette card and my Craft Roulette video. So this is just the beginning stages of another video that I'm going to be putting out. But what I wanted to do for my Craft Roulette card for this week is I wanted to do the technique that's called stack, cut, and shuffle. And so I pulled in a paper pack called All Is Bright. And this is a retired paper pack, and I'm picking these 3 designs from that paper pack. And I'm going to try to use as much of all of the 12 by 12 that I can, and that would be possible if, so this is kind of the design that I'm going to be doing, that I'm going to be cutting, and to get no scraps, you could probably do that if you didn't want a mat underneath this layer, because then you could make this 4 inches across and 5 1/4 down, and then with that 3/4 that you cut off, for like on the 6 inches, you could use that on the inside of your card. So that would be a no scrap card design. But since I wanted a mat underneath here, I'm going to have a little bit extra on the 3 3 3/4 cut here, because I wanted that mat. Now when you do the mat, you could do one of 2 things. So I have a little sample here just with some copy paper. So what you could do is you could take your pieces and you could butt them completely up against each other so that you can get and then have that little border around the outside. And then if you wanted to have like some green in between those designs, you could put strips of paper. Or the other option is you could separate these just a bit and give yourself a border like that. I think that's going to be harder to do, and I'm not sure which way I'm going to go yet. I'm thinking that maybe putting my scraps of paper on another piece of copy paper like this. Then what I could do is then I could put strips of that green down here and across here. And then I would be able, because they would be adhered to this copy paper, I would be able to then just snip off the ends. So I'm not sure which way I'm going to go yet, but those are the 2 options that you could use. So for my card base, I'm going to use Real Red, and for my matting is Shaded Spruce, and then these 3 designs that I showed you on my designer paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is, so that they're all even, I'm going to cut them all together. So on this process, you need to make sure that you keep it even, all the 3 pieces even. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it. Well, I'm going to first look to see if there's any direction, and there really isn't any direction on these. But if there were, you want to take that into consideration. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this first cut on all 3, because that's the 3 are stacked, and then I'm going to cut it at 6 inches. And then I'm trying to decide, should I cut off the inch now? Because this part going down needs to be 5 inches. So if I cut off the inch now, then I can go back and cut them in 4 inches for the inside of my cards. And I think I'll do that. So now I'm going to cut off an inch. from the bottom. So make sure it's nice and even. So now this will be at 5, and then an inch will come off the bottom of that. And then I can go back and cut these 3 strips. Oops, I didn't go all the way through. Maybe the best thing is to go back and forth to make sure, because we're cutting through 3 pieces. There we go. Then I can go back and cut these into 4-inch strips and use whatever part of them I want for the inside of my cards. I'm probably going to have extras because I'm not going to need, I'm not going to make that many cards. I'm only going to make probably 6. So we'll see which part I cut and put on the inside. So now this is cut down to 5 inches, according to my diagram here. And then now I'm going to make each of these at 3 3/4. So I'll cut my first set at 3 3/4. And then another, and I'm making sure they're lined up evenly, 3 3/4. And then another 3 3/4. Okay, so this is what I'll have left over there as well. And you could probably use these on the inside and cut it down to 4 on the inside of the card, and then have those longer strips for something else. So there, and then I'm going to go ahead and now try to cut each of these stacks into this diagonal pattern. So you could do one of 2 things. You could kind of just eyeball it. You could make little tick marks if you want. But the key is that the 3 that you want have to be together so that when you do your shuffle and put it together, they'll match up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of lay this over here, kind of look at my line, my first cut line, and decide where I want it. Then I'm going to just remove my template so that I can use it for all the other cuts. And I'm just going to slice off that first one. And then I'm going to pull my little template back in and just kind of use it as a guide for me on where I want to cut it. And it doesn't have to be exact. It just has to be that all 3 are cut the same. And then I'll go ahead and cut through that. And then off camera, I'll do this other set and the other ones, but I don't want to bore you with that. But then what you would do is you have your 3 cuts here. So now it's just a matter of doing your shuffling. And you can do that many ways. You could just put this one underneath one time. And then you could take this one and shuffle the first 2 and put it underneath. And then see, then now you have on the first card base, I would have this, this, and this. And then on my second card base, it would be these 3 right here. And then my last card base would be this. And see, then I get a little bit of each of the designs on each of my cards. And they're just laid out differently. I just thought I love this stack, cut, and shuffle technique because you can get a lot of cards and still they can each look a little different. And this kind of reminds me of what Crafty Owl does, right? When she shuffles after she cuts, she doesn't do the stacking part, but I love this because I love Crafty Owl's cards. So this is kind of similar to that. And then in the end, because then once I cut, so I'm going to get 3 cards here. this will give me another 3. Oh, so I'm going to get quite a bit. So I'm going to get, so I'll get 3 and another 3 and another 3. So, and then with the other one, so that's going to be 18 cards. Is that right? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, because I'll get 9 from this first cut that I did, and then I'll get another 9 when I do the other part of that 12 by 12 paper. Wow, that's 18 cards. So I might need all those strips over there to decorate the inside of my card. We'll see how it all works out. But I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to focus just on one of them so that I can get my Craft Roulette card done for this week. And then I will continue cutting, doing my stacking, cutting, and shuffling. And then I can decide how I want to embellish it, what sentiments I want to use. And so when I get to that point, I'll come back and show you what I chose to decide for my decorating with my embellishments and my sentiment and all that. But for now, I'm going to go work on my Craft Roulette cards. So I will be back later. Okay, I am back. And I have all my cutting done and my shuffling. Now, when I was doing the shuffling, it wasn't until after I realized that if I didn't shuffle in different ways, because like I showed you before, I shuffled like this corner and this corner, but I wasn't doing a whole lot of shuffling with this one. So what I ended up finding out that if you don't shuffle them, like start shuffling from this corner, the next time shuffle from this, and then next time shuffle from this, you will get different layouts, but you'll get more. And so if I would have done it from all 3 of the sections when I cut them, then I would have had 3 of each laid out like this, where I would have 3 with the light bulbs in this corner and the greenery here and the red down here. And I would have 3 of these and 3 of these. But because I didn't do that, I ended up only getting 1 of each of these layouts. And then I think it was like 5, is it? Yeah, 5, because the other one I've already created. So because there's 4 there with that same layout. And then I think this one has 5. Yeah. And then this one has 5. So if you don't care how they're laid out on there, then you don't need to worry about that. But if you do, then just consider that little trick. And then, as I told you before, I wasn't sure if I was going to just try to add a little space between the designer papers like this, trying to get a little bit of border in between them. And I could have done that, but I wasn't sure. I thought that would be harder to do. So I ended up cutting some copy paper. And what I'm going to do is glue all the pieces directly onto the copy paper, because then that way you can butt them right up against each other. Let me get this done here, and I'm getting the camera for you. See, you can butt them up right against each other when you're gluing, and then you don't have to worry about, am I going to get the right amount of dimension in between them? And then this way, if you get a little too much white shown at the bottom, you can do some trimming. Plus, the other cool thing about doing it this way is I've cut some green strips, and then I can now lay them down once I get all that glued down. And I have 2 strips, one longer than the other. And once I get that glued down, see, then I'll still be able to snip it off easy doing it this way. So that's the choice, the way I went with these cards. And then I would just adhere. When that's all done, I would adhere it to my card base and then just continue on. Now, I'm not going to do all the other steps because I'm sure you all know how to stamp and decorate and do whatever it is you want with your cards. I'll show you what I did with mine, the one that I created for Craft Roulette, and what I used, and then you can decide how you want to create your own and design them. But I love the fact that this is going to give me 18 cards. So here is the card that I made for Craft Roulette, and I'm using this Making Christmas Bright. And on this image right here, I just did some gold embossing with that. And then on the May Your Christmas Be Bright, what I loved about this set is that those two are separate stamps. So I did the May Your Christmas Be Bright in the shaded spruce, which is the color of my matting. And then I did bright in the real red, which is the color of my card base. And then I pulled in this punch so that I could punch it out, and it would have this, it would have a cute punch there. And then I just popped it up on dimensionals and put it on my card there.